All right, everybody, what's going on? Welcome to the Monday Morning Live. How is everybody doing today? Put a one in the chat if you can hear me clearly. Let's see what we got. Who do we got in here? All right, Miss D, good morning. How you doing? We got my mama in here. Good morning, good morning. Look at that. Folks done overslept, showing up late. Right? That ashwagandha hitting hard. Folks got into that real good deep sleep. Right? But we're going to get into it, right? We got to talk about solutions for your liver and gallbladder. Solutions for your liver and gallbladder, right? It's actually liver, kidneys, and gallbladder. It's kind of a cycle between the three, but in particular, liver and gallbladder, right? Because those two are in direct transit between each other, right? There's a direct pipeline from your liver to your gallbladder to your stomach to facilitate digestion. And folks be having a lot of digestive issues, specifically women. All right. Liver issues affect the broader population, generally men and women, to a very significant degree. But women are 3 times as likely to develop gallbladder complications, right? 3 times as much. All right. And so, for women, it's extremely important to be mindful of dietary hygiene, right? Men can get away with eating a lot of acidic foods, eating a lot of protein and fat and things like this. However, when it comes to women, it's a bit different, right? Because your hormonal balance is very different. Some things to be mindful of if you're having these kinds of issues. We've got extreme gas and bloating, excessive fullness, swelling of the midsection. All right. We've got sharp pain in the right side of the abdomen. And that can actually radiate upwards to your right shoulder. All right. So you can have that, some significant body pains there. Okay. You can experience swelling of the hands. Okay. Edema. Now that's often a liver issue and blood flow issue. Okay. But there are some gallbladder implications there as well with that. Then we've got nausea. Okay. Chronic fatigue. But the chronic fatigue and the nausea thing in your head, it's a big thing. All right. So these are signs. Now, this is not a confirmation that you necessarily have a gallbladder complication, but it is likely. It is a thing that's on the table to consider, okay? Now, the crazy thing is, too, is that it's actually a lot more easy to develop a gallstone than you think. And I would argue, at least according to the data, that most of you have a gallstone, right? It would vary in size. It could be some really small ones. You may not experience any symptoms from having a gallstone at all. You can have a gallstone and not even know it because you don't have any symptoms. Right? If you do start to have symptoms, it's because that gallstone has gotten large enough and the positioning of it has caused some type of issue, right? Typically, let's say you have a gallstone and it is now blocking one of your bile ducts, right? It's getting clogged up in there, right? That makes some serious pain. Only about 1 to 2% of people with gallstones actually experience the symptoms. Okay. And then you may not necessarily have like a gallstone that has formed, but you got like a sludge, like a thickness of it, right? Well, you may have the bile acid in your gallbladder is a little too thick, right? The reason why this affects women more so is because of the effects that estrogen and progesterone have. All right. Estrogen binds more of the cholesterol to the bile acids in your gallbladder. Okay. So you just get way more cholesterol in your bile acid. And so that can cause the increase of the likelihood of developing gallstones or sludge in your gallbladder. Progesterone actually relaxes the gallbladder and lead to you having a slower emptying of the gallbladder. So let's say, you're eating dietary fats and proteins and things like this. Maybe you're getting a little carried away with the junk foods, things like this, acidic foods, right? Things that ain't so alkaline. If your gallbladder is relaxed enough, you don't really get the signaling for your gallbladder to empty bile into your stomach to facilitate digestion, right? Your gallbladder can be a little too relaxed because of the progesterone. All right. So that can give you some digestive complications because if you do not have the necessary stomach acid and digestive enzymes, you can experience some pretty significant gas and bloating. All right. So that whole midsection can feel very ballooned up, very inflated. It could be deeply uncomfortable stuff. All right. This is just the gallbladder, by the way. We're even talking about the liver. As far as the liver is concerned, you can also have liver congestion, which can jam up your liver with excessive levels of stored glycogen and fat in your liver, which can cause you to have chronically elevated excessive triglycerides. Okay. You can also develop fatty liver as a result because if your liver is packed to capacity with stored glucose in the form of glycogen, fat synthesis of the liver becomes increased. Right? This increases something called lipogenesis, which is the formation and storage of new fat. All right. So you can make your liver heavier. And what happens is when you store excess fat in your liver, this raises your cholesterol because now more stored fat in the liver leads to an increase in cholesterol synthesis. All right. So you get an increase in cholesterol synthesis, and cholesterol is used to make, right? That bile is then sent to the gallbladder. You can end up with a congested gallbladder where that excess cholesterol is being bound up in your gallbladder, leading to a thickening, a sludgening of the bile in your gallbladder. And this is what causes the traffic jam, not only in your liver, but in your gallbladder as well. And then this leads to a decline in the necessary level of stomach acid that you would need in order to facilitate a healthy digestive process in your stomach. All right, so this has these cascading effects to start with your diet, right? It creates this massive feedback loop. And eventually what happens is this can lead to you having digestive complications and gallbladder complications to the point where you just have to avoid dietary fats altogether. I don't necessarily advocate for that, but something close to it, right? You may have to significantly reduce the amount of dietary fat, but not eliminate all of the dietary fat entirely, right? Because there are consequences to doing that as well, right? You do need some dietary fats, just not as much as you think. Okay. And I'll get into that. I'm just explaining the mechanisms of how this works. So one of the most important things that you have to do is really, people say detox your liver, and it's like, yeah, detox your liver kinda, but mainly allow your liver the chance to empty out, so to speak, so that you can reduce the amount of stored fat in your liver and reduce the amount of stored glycogen in your liver, right? and the two go hand in hand. And this is where some type of fasting, to a degree or another, can be beneficial. However, fasting is not a magic bullet either. And the reason why is because if you're too aggressive with the fasting in and of itself, and it's not accompanied by a dietary strategy that helps to reverse these issues, it can actually make it worse. The longer you fast, it kind of deactivates your gallbladder, right? So you don't get the contraction in your gallbladder that causes bile to be released out of your gallbladder into your stomach because you're not eating, so there's no digestion that's taking place. And if you maintain those conditions long enough, essentially what happens is this leads to a thickening of the bile in your gallbladder. All right. And that creates the conditions to also form stones. So this is what I mean about it's not a magic bullet. It doesn't mean that you should avoid fasting. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you don't rely on one thing in particular to just act as like just an all overall fix. It's not really how that works. The fasting can reduce the side effects though of the digestive pain. So a lot of people are like, oh, when I fast, I feel better. And then when I eat, I feel worse. Right? And when you fast, you feel better because you're not putting food in that's creating the discomfort, right? Because of the other, congestive issues going on with the liver and the gallbladder. Because sometimes you need to fast, and the reason why is because you got to allow your body to be able to kind of empty out your liver and whatnot, and create some space, right? Starting in your liver, really. And sometimes addressing the liver issue takes precedent over the gallbladder issue. Okay. So with the fasting, now the interesting thing too with the fasting is the fact that the fasting increases something called lipolysis, which is the metabolizing of fat, right? So lipogenesis is the building up of fat. Lipolysis is the breaking down of fat, taking fat and converting it into glucose to use for energy, right? This is very important too, because let's say a lot of the times what happens to people with gallbladder issues are also like insulin resistant, pre-diabetic, or just straight up type 2 diabetic, right? A lot of the times. And that's when these issues really start. In the medical community, as far as women and gallbladder issues, there are the 4 F's, right? At least that's how they refer to it. And the 4 F's are female, fertile, 40, and fat. Those are the 4. You don't necessarily have to fit all 4 conditions, but those are the 4 conditions that likely produce the gallbladder issues, okay? Female, because females have the estrogen and progesterone that contribute greatly to these conditions. 40 is because a lot of times this is when these issues start. And if you're like premenopausal, you get this crazy uptick in estrogen, right? You get this massive estrogen dump, which contributes to the thickening of the bile in your gallbladder, right? And the accumulation of cholesterol in your bile, right? And that covers the female and fertile and 40 thing. And then if you're fat, likely it's because you're consuming a lot of dietary fats. And so that's contributing to the increase in the cholesterol and the traffic jam that forms in your liver and your gallbladder. Right? It's not necessarily the fat that's causing it. It's if you're fat, it's an indication of how you've been eating that creates the conditions, right? And that goes into the insulin resistance thing that I was just talking about. Right? And this traffic jam is a very interesting thing to work out. And I always talk about how there's no magic bullets, right? If you're dealing with the insulin resistance thing, normally you can eat your way out of insulin resistance, right? You can just gather your diet up, get your diet locked in, right? And have a specific dietary pattern that addresses these issues. But sometimes that don't work. Sometimes your only option is fasting because your digestion is so compromised that you kind of have to step away from the eating a bit. You have to just stop altogether, right? So when you fast, this allows your liver to empty out. Now, Fasting is not a thing that necessarily causes you to have lower blood sugar. It's not really what happens, right? Fasting can ultimately, over time, lead to a better fasted blood sugar. It leads to that. It doesn't automatically create that. Not particularly already insulin resistant or diabetic. It can, but not necessarily. Here's why. So let's say you eat carbohydrates, and carbohydrates trigger a release of insulin from your pancreas. Insulin shuttles glucose to your liver, to your muscle cells, to your brain, right? That's what insulin does. Insulin is the thing that is responsible for lowering your blood sugar, right? Insulin lowers your blood sugar. There is a hormone that is the opposite of insulin. Not exactly the opposite, but in certain means. So, for example, glucagon is a hormone that's released from your pancreas, and glucagon increases your blood sugar. So insulin lowers it, glucagon increases it. So when your blood sugar drops too low, your pancreas then releases glucagon in order to provoke your liver to dump more glucose into your bloodstream and pick your blood sugar back up. The way your pancreas does this is your pancreas takes stored glycogen or stored glucose inside your liver and dumps that into your pancreas. And then over time, when you empty out the stored glycogen in your liver will then metabolize stored fat in your liver and convert that into stored glucose and rinse and repeat. So as you fast, you go through this cycle of emptying glucose out of your liver and into your bloodstream, breaking down more stored fat in your liver and converting that into glucose to then again dump into your bloodstream. It goes from your bloodstream to your brain, to your muscle tissue, to your vital organs, etc. So that's the process of how that goes. Out of the liver and into everything else. Out of the liver and into everything else. Out of the liver and into everything else. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Before you really drop body fat, you drop liver fat. That's the thing your body prioritizes, right? When you drop liver fat, then your body drops visceral fat. As your body drops visceral fat, then your body will drop subcutaneous fat. This is particularly how this works. This is like this loading and reloading phase that your body goes through, right? So the actual visible body fat that you see drop in your body, that happens after your liver has really emptied out, because your weight loss journey starts with you losing weight in your liver. That's actually how that starts, right? So as you do this, this gives you the ability to lower your triglycerides. Triglycerides is essentially is a combination of sugar and fat together, right? So it's a glucose that's formed from fat, right? Now, as you lose weight in your liver, right, as you decongest your liver, your triglycerides come down, right? And your cholesterol comes down. Because if you're fasting, you're not consuming the dietary fat needed to synthesize cholesterol. So that can come down to a healthy level. So as your triglycerides drop, as your stored fat, your liver drops, your cholesterol drops, this is a decongestion of your liver, which then carries over to having very positive benefits to your gallbladder and your digestion. All right. Now, the kicker, too, is you can have women who are not fat at all or actually, like, fairly slim, but you could still have a fatty liver. You can still have a congested liver. So you're like, I don't understand how I'm having these issues. I'm not obese or anything. I'm at a normal weight. And it's like, you could be at a normal weight, right? But what's your liver look like? All right, so that's why I'm talking about these two together, because of the relationship they have. However, if you overdo it with the fasting, this can yield negative consequences also, right? Positive, but not entirely positive, because as you drop insulin, because if you're not eating, insulin declines. right? But as insulin declines, blood sugar increases from the glucagon. So you could be in a fast and have high blood sugar if you're diabetic. You may not necessarily have high blood sugar, but you could. And you can be like, oh no, I'm fasting, I have this crazy high blood sugar. Isn't this a bad sign? It's like, well, not necessarily, because that's what glucagon does. Glucagon raises your blood sugar. Fasting also raises your blood sugar because of an increase in what's called cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Cortisol also contributes to lipolysis, which increases blood sugar. All right. Cortisol is the thing that we can regulate, though. We can regulate that through herbs. We can regulate it through hydration. We can regulate this through having a solid sleep schedule, this type of thing. So there are ways in certain types of supplementation and things like this where you can also regulate cortisol. Cortisol is not an entirely bad thing. It can be very beneficial. It depends on how long your cortisol is elevated for. Typically, you should experience your biggest cortisol spike in the morning, and then it declines as the day goes on. The problem is when you have this elevated cortisol in the morning and then you have it at night, which interrupts your sleep, right? The biggest problem with staying up late, like 1 o'clock in the morning, is the fact that if you stay up late enough, you get a cortisol spike. That's what makes it really difficult to go to sleep, is if you stay up too late. Because there will be a time at night where your cortisol is low enough for you to get into a deep sleep. However, if you decide to scroll on your phone, expose yourself to bright lights, all of this type of stuff, you get another cortisol spike again and you're back up. And then it's difficult to fall asleep. This is why going to bed early is so important, right? So if you can manage cortisol, then you can manage your blood sugar a little bit better. Now, if you have a lot of stored fat and whatnot in your liver, you can be in a fast, and this would elevate your blood sugar for a longer period of time. It's not really anything to be really alarmed about, right? Just understand that's how the process plays out. So if you decide to use fasting, you're using it as a part of a long-term strategy to empty out your liver and gradually improve your insulin sensitivity. Because as you drop the amount of stored glucose and fat in your liver, you gain more insulin sensitivity of the liver, right? So the fasting strategy, yeah, sure, it benefits weight loss, but it's not really specifically what it's for. It's mainly is a weight loss journey of the liver. It's the first thing to really understand. It's a setup for the next thing. It's not a thing in and of itself that, oh, that's just the magic ticket. It's not really that. And this is not really about diabetes or anything like that. That's not really what this video is about, but it's important to understand how that works. Now we get into the dietary strategy side. All right. So you can have a fasting strategy and then you can have an eating strategy. Now with the eating strategy, top down, what we're looking at, you can set some type of eating window. It could be 8 hours, it could be 6 hours, it could be 4 hours. Depends on what your goal is, right? There are different meals that you would have within your eating strategy, and each meal should be geared towards achieving a particular thing. All right. The first meal typically is a hydrating meal. Your first meal should be a very water-rich meal. It should be something that's very easy on the gut, something that is relatively high in soluble fiber and water, something that's very rich in electrolytes and vitamin C and B vitamins. All right. At the top of the list, we have melon, cantaloupe, watermelon, this type of thing. That's at the top of the list. All right. If you don't have any ripe melons, we default to things like citrus fruits, grapefruit, tangerines, right? Pomelos, whatever you got, right? Your citrus fruits. The citrus fruits are really important because that's important for preventing and also aiding in the breakdown and dissolving of stones in your gallbladder. Okay. Your citrus fruits contain significant amounts of electrolytes, calcium, potassium, magnesium. okay, as well as other things that are not necessarily electrolytes, but you have your zinc, you have your copper, things like this. And not just potassium, calcium, and magnesium, but also manganese. Right? Manganese is really important for regulating the calcium structures in your body to prevent the excessive breakdown of your calcium structures and the overgrowth of calcium structures. Not all gallstones are made equally, right? Not all are made of the same things. You have some stones that are formed from cholesterol, and you have some stones that are formed from calcium, and you have stones that are formed from a mix of the two, right? This is where dairy consumption becomes problematic for people, especially for women, because you have women who will say, well, as a woman, I am more predisposed to osteoporosis, degenerative bone disease. So I have to, maybe take a calcium supplement or, consume more dairy in order to get more calcium in my diet. It's like, well, that's not really what it is. It depends on what your calcium is being used for. It's not necessarily that you need more calcium in your diet. It's really that you need to put the necessary things in your body to adequately delegate the calcium in the right areas. So that calcium could either be going towards the formation of plaque, like atherosclerotic plaque buildup. It could be going towards the formation of kidney or gallstones. You don't want your calcium going to that. You want your calcium going to your lean mass, muscle tissue, and bone density, right? Things like this. So this is where it's important to have the adequate level of hydration, potassium, and magnesium, as well as manganese, undergirding whatever calcium you're getting in your diet. So it's a directional thing. It's not a quantity thing. It's a directional thing. It's a delegation thing. So the citrus fruits are really good with improving the delegation of where that calcium goes. Right? Whatever calcium you consume, it necessarily has to be or combined with magnesium. Right? So this is a very important pair. And magnesium deficiency is also very common in women as well, especially in black women, because of the high propensity for a vitamin D deficiency. Right? So anyways, in the morning, right, you got your melon or you got your citrus fruits. These are going to be like your primary things. And you can combine your citrus fruits with your grapes. And grapes are a really good detox food. And it's a really, really good source of vitamin K. All right. And vitamin K, specifically vitamin K1, goes to your gut, and that is converted into vitamin K2 by the bacteria in your gut. And vitamin K2 is really important for maintaining the elasticity of your vital organ tissues, your vascular health, and it's really important for protecting bone density, as well as balancing out the formation of white blood cells. Okay, so vitamin K is really important for this. Hormonal balance, bone density, vital organ tissue elasticity, vascular tissue health, etc. So that vitamin K2 is really important for that. And then, of course, because vitamin K is it's a postbiotic. It's not really a thing necessarily you get from food. It's a thing your body makes on its own. Right? It's like folate. Right? So you get folate from food, but that goes through a conversion process in your gut. Right? Where your gut bacteria produces folate that sends back up into your body, and that's really important for the health of your nervous system and things like this. And that's really important because that regulates, the opening and closing of valves, the contractions and dilations of your different vital organ tissues. For example, your heart rhythm. In order to maintain a healthy heart rhythm, you need folate, for example, right? So this is why gut bacteria is really important. Even like the contraction and dilation of your intestines and stomach and gallbladder, all this type of stuff, it's all undergirded by the function of your nervous system. All right? So you eat that vitamin K1, it goes to your gut, and then your gut bacteria produces that vitamin K2, and it's split between MK4 and MK7 because there's different types of vitamin K2. And they do different things, right? And your gut regulates all that. Your gut also produces things like short chain fatty acids, which is also needed for maintaining the health and functionality of your intestines, your digestive tract. It's up into your gut, and it signals the synthesis and secretion of glucagon like peptide, which is really important for maintaining a healthy balance between leptin and ghrelin. All right, this feeling of feeling full and feelings of hunger, this type of thing, that's largely controlled or regulated by your gut health. Those short chain fatty acids are also very important for lipid balance, right? The balance of the amount of fat that's in your blood, the amount of fat that's absorbed from your food. It regulates lipogenesis and lipolysis and this type of thing, right? Those short chain fatty acids are really important for preventing or reducing stone formation. So you'll have people on the internet and they're like, oh, drink apple cider vinegar because of it helps to prevent stones or break down stones and this type of thing, right? You have very big apple cider vinegar advocates. Apple cider vinegar, the reason why this produces the benefits that it does is because of the short chain fatty acids. Apple cider vinegar essentially is just fermented apple pectin, right? Your gut does the same exact thing. It produces the short chain fatty acids. However, I don't really recommend eating or drinking apple cider vinegar because, well, you can erode your tooth enamel. That can lead to, let's say, acid reflux because apple cider vinegar increases stomach acid, right? So this can really cause a contraction of your gallbladder, which can be deeply problematic because if you have a stone that's large enough in your gallbladder and that apple cider vinegar causes that contraction, that stone can get lodged in a bile duct. And that's where a lot of pain can start from. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, but it can. Because that contraction causes a dumping of bile into your stomach in order to facilitate the digestive process. So people use apple cider vinegar as a means of increasing stomach acid for better digestion, right? And this is the thing you got to be careful with because it can be a very powerful stimulant that causes that contraction, right? So it's a bit of a gamble when you do that. So the erosion of the tooth enamel and then the rapid increase in stomach acid in the stomach, and this can lead to an overaccumulation of acid in the stomach and can lead to acid reflux, okay, and heartburn. So these are things to consider with the apple cider vinegar. So a safer bet would just have a fiber-rich diet that will cause you to get more of the short chain fatty acids from your gut working its way up rather than something you drink to get the short chain fatty acids going on its way down. Okay. So this is just like a risk management thing. The reason why I suggest one over the other. You're better off eating apple as opposed to drinking apple cider vinegar. If you're going to get something that's more fermented in your diet, because there is a benefit to having fermented foods in your diet, right? So, for example, sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, pickles, right? Things of this nature. I would recommend that more so as opposed to just drinking apple cider vinegar, right? If you're going to get probiotics, something fermented, you want it to come from an actual whole food that contains fiber rather than it just coming from a liquid, all right? The safest thing apart from the apple cider vinegar is like a kombucha, right? Which is fermented black tea. It's a little bit gentler on your gut. All right. So those would be my recommendations for that. But your first meal should be a hydrating meal that is abundant in electrolytes and vitamin C and things like this, because the hydration is really important. Because the hydration regulates blood sugar. It regulates the fat concentration in your blood. It helps to decongest your liver. And then also the hydration is needed to reduce the viscosity inside your gallbladder. Okay? So this prevents reduces the environment in your gallbladder that leads to sludge and gallstones. Okay? So that's your first meal. That should be what your first meal does. Your second meal is where you would have more of like your dietary fibers, probiotics, things like this, right? Your second meal should be like a really gut healthy food, gut healthy diet. This could be a bit tricky because your dietary fats are very beneficial, but it depends on the form. Saturated fats are the ones that produces the most negative results. But your polyunsaturated fats, your water-rich fats, your raw fats are going to be your biggest benefit, and your most fiber-rich fats, and the ones that are higher in omega-3 concentration. Okay, so animal fats, that's like the worst one. Then up from that, you have your plant-based fats that are more rich in omega-6. That's not as bad, but it's a bit of a gamble. And then you have your polyunsaturated, fiber-rich omega-3 essential fatty acid sources. That's your best kind of fat. If you're going to have a fat that's higher in saturated fat, it should come from something like a coconut, because coconut particularly is very water-rich. Okay? And if it's fermented coconut, like a coconut yogurt, that's even better. And this coconut yogurt could be really beneficial for improving your gut health. And this carries over to having very beneficial effects on the liver and the gallbladder. Okay. So this leads towards easier digestion. So if you're dealing with the gas and the bloating and all of this type of stuff, coconut yogurt goes a long way towards improving. I talk about coconut yogurt all the time. It goes a long way towards improving on these conditions. All right. Now, along with the coconut yogurt, you can get more forms of that dietary fiber, and that dietary fiber is really important for removing excess cholesterol and bile acids from your digestive process. Because the fiber is a mechanism that actually helps to decongest not just your gallbladder, but also your liver. So this is why I'm always talking about coconut yogurt with berries, right? But not just with berries. Coconut yogurt with kiwi, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries. Coconut yogurt with passion fruit. Coconut yogurt with dragon fruit. All right. These are the best fruits to combine this kind of thing with. They have a low glycemic index, right? So they don't cause as much of a blood sugar spike. They're very fiber rich, and they're very rich in vitamin C, vitamin K, things like magnesium. And they also come with really potent antioxidants. For example, resveratrol, which carries over to things like regulating blood pressure, vascular health, strengthening your immune system, things like this. Right? Foods like this also contain high concentrations of beta carotene, which is the substrate for vitamin A synthesis in the liver. Vitamin A is really important for skin health, vital organ tissue, hormonal balance, all this type of stuff, right? So that vitamin A is really important for that. And it's also really important for healing your liver from any potential liver inflammation or liver damage. All right. Your berries are deeply pigmented. Typically, they're either going to be violet or red colored. And then you got your kiwi. Kiwi is a good source of omega-3, good source of vitamin E, vitamin K, vitamin C, right? So kiwi is a big deal, and vitamin C is very rich in fiber. And if you really want to leverage kiwi in this regard, you eat the kiwi with the skin on it. That furry little fuzzy skin on the kiwi. It's actually edible. Most of the fiber in kiwi comes from the skin. All right. It may not look all that appetizing because it's fuzzy and kind of weird looking, but it is highly medicinal. All right. And then you get your passion fruit, which is an extremely fiber-rich, low glycemic food. Okay. And dragon fruit. Low glycemic, very fiber-rich food. Good omega-3 concentration. So this is like the gut health omega-3 essential fatty acid fiber-rich food. That meal, right? And then also you can include, as far as your dietary fats, your beneficial dietary fats is chia seeds, flax seeds, or hemp seeds. Those are the three, right? And that would be that. That's like a good solid staple meal to really use. So those are your first two meals of the day. in your dietary strategy. No cooking required, right? Third meal could be more of a salad. Your leafy green vegetables, your pumpkin seed kernels, your bell pepper, sliced leeks or onion, right? Cucumber, things like this. And you can also throw in things like crushed walnut. However, the caveat is with your salad, you don't want to get too carried away with the dietary fats. Generally speaking, your dietary fats broadly throughout your day, it should be between a half a gram and 1 gram of fat per kilogram of lean mass. That's the amount of fat you can kind of safely consume without having the significant gas and bloating issues. Because a lot of the gas and the bloating comes from when you dump a fatty food in. Okay, so if you have the low stomach acid, right, because of the gallbladder congestion, and you combine that with low digestive enzymes, let's say you have low pepsin, low trypsin, right, this kind of thing, that can lead to the gas. If you're experiencing a lot of gas and bloating from starchy foods, whether it be potatoes, rice, whatever the case is, that is an indication of not only low stomach acid, but low amylase, because amylase is important for the breakdown of those dense carbohydrates. Okay. So everybody's gut makeup is a bit different, right? So what I'm saying is a more general thing, but it will have to be tailored to you specifically. If it's an issue with increasing digestive enzymes and stomach acid, you can actually take supplements that help with this, right? So you can take a digestive enzyme and digestive enzyme combined with probiotics, right? In the Tribe Shop on my website, I actually have something for this, right? So it's a combination of digestive acids and digestive enzymes and probiotics and HCl, right? The hydrochloric acid. Okay. And you can actually take that earlier in your day to facilitate the digestion. I would take a digestive enzyme like that with like the second meal. Okay. So yeah, that's salad, right? You can get a mix of different greens. A little bit of spinach, a little bit of arugula, a little kale, a little watercress, right? You can throw in some sprouted lentils. Don't get too carried away with the sprouted lentils because typically when you have these gallbladder issues, you don't respond well to significant increases in dietary protein. Dietary protein is very acidic. It takes a lot to really break down in that digestive process. So protein shakes, no. Protein powders, no. Mm-mm. Very protein-rich diet. Your protein generally should be around 1 gram of protein per kilogram of lean mass, right, if you're dealing with an issue like this. All right. Avocado can be a highly beneficial food, especially in that last meal of the day. And I'm a big fan of adding avocado in. You can do a half an avocado, whatever the case. It depends on the size of the avocado. You're looking at around, if you decide to put in avocado, it's typically going to be like around maybe 5 ounces of avocado. And that's like around 25 grams of fat, something like this. Kind of high, but avocado is a bit easier on the gut, especially if you combine it with a salad, because the salads have a lot of the insoluble fiber that really helps to manage the acid issues. All right. So you get your leafy greens, you get your onion, bell pepper, all this type of stuff. And the onion and the bell pepper is actually really, really good for hormonal balance. It's really good for bringing up, like, let's say if you're anemic, because a lot of times too, if you have liver congestive issues, inflammation of the gallbladder, you'll end up being anemic. Not necessarily because you don't get enough iron in your diet, but because of all the inflammation going on, right? So if you have low iron, right, you're anemic, you need to raise ferritin. Getting more onion and peppers in your diet can be really beneficial and helpful because this contains, or this combination contains, high levels of not just iron but also copper and vitamin C together. So you can get a lot of iron and copper from the sprouted lentils. You get a lot of iron and copper from your leafy green vegetables, and you get a lot of iron, copper, and vitamin C from the peppers. And typically, you would want to combine the vitamin C with the iron and copper rich foods in order to increase the iron absorption. All right. And then the leafy green vegetables are really rich sources of beta carotene, right? Which is for that vitamin A that you really need for hormonal regulation and the reduction of the inflammation in your liver and your gallbladder, right? Vitamin A is really important for this. And so the fat that you get from the avocado actually leads to a higher absorption of the beta carotene. All right. And, when we're dealing with these chronic inflammation issues, you definitely want a higher absorption of the good stuff. So food combining becomes really important. Avocado is also really important for folate. It's a folate-rich food, a B vitamin-rich food. So it's really important for vitamin B1, B2, B5, B6, right? This type of thing. Right? So thiamine, riboflavin, pantothenic acid, biotin, folate, these types of things. Right? Avocado is a really good food for that. Avocado is very rich in copper, and copper is really important for oxygen saturation in your blood. All right. You don't need a whole lot of it, only like 5 ounces or so, maybe 2.5 to 3 ounces. It depends on, your lean mass and what the rest of your diet looks like. Okay. Crushed walnut is a thing that people typically do very well with, or just walnut in general. The thing about walnuts is more alkaline because it's lower in protein and higher in dietary fats, specifically omega-3 essential fatty acids. So you'll see like on the whole Dr. Sebi alkaline food list, walnuts make the cut because of that. It's a less acidic food because it's lower protein content, higher in the dietary fats, specifically of omega-3 essential fatty acids. Also a very rich source of iron and copper. Okay. I don't know if I would recommend putting in the walnut and the avocado simultaneously. It depends on the person. If you can get away with doing it and you don't have any digestive issues with doing that, then definitely go for it. Right? Now, this is specifically all the food I just mentioned so far. This is more so for raw diet. Right? So if you eat more raw, along the lines of what I just told you, this is a really good way of repairing your liver and gallbladder with those 3 meals. This isn't a high protein diet, but typically if you have something that you need to heal from, you don't really need that much protein in your diet. You need to focus on more medicinal foods. Okay. Now, before that salad, what you can do as an appetizer is you can have about 8 to 12 ounces of pineapple. Pineapple increases stomach acid and digestive enzymes. So it facilitates easier digestion. It's a good appetizer if you have gut health issues. Another one could be papaya. Papaya is another really good food for improving digestion. So you can eat papaya as an appetizer. You can do 6 ounces of papaya, 6 ounces of pineapple together. That works also. All right. We've got herbs. We've got herbal teas. Basil is at the top of my list. Basil is really important for regulating the bacterial makeup in your upper gut as well as your lower gut. A lot of women or just people in general who have a lot of digestive issues is because you got an overgrowth of candida and bacteria overgrowth in your gut. Right? Candida, SIBO, things like this. Those compound these issues, make it way worse. So it could be a gallbladder issue, it could be a liver issue, but it can also be a candida and SIBO issue. Right? It's never really like one specific thing. This is the reason why the results between people can vary so much. Some people can eat certain things, and then others is a much different story. Some people, sprouted lentils is really good for them. Some, absolutely horrible. right? Some people, they can put 5 ounces of avocado in. Some people can only put 2.5 to 3 ounces. All right. But that basil kills bad bacteria and fungal overgrowth. Right? Basil is really powerful stuff. Basil can stop sepsis. Right? So if you got bad bacteria that has entered your bloodstream and wreaking havoc on your body, basil can potentially save your life. I've witnessed it firsthand with my lady, right? I got basil because she was having issues. I got dried basil, and I got it like 2 pounds at a time. I keep basil. I keep it in the house. So I've seen this firsthand. It works real quick. It's very effective. It could serve as a good alternative to taking antibiotics. I'm speaking from personal experience. It's really powerful stuff, basil. Ginger tea. That's another one that's really good for digestive health. You may want to drink ginger tea before meals. Starchy meals, or meals that are higher in your dietary fats, heavier meals in general, that ginger. Right? So if you combine like ginger tea and the pineapple or papaya before that meal as an appetizer, that can make for much easier digestion. All right. In the morning, combining matcha and ginger tea together can improve the digestion that you experience for the whole entire day. So before you eat anything, 1 teaspoon of matcha powder, 1 teaspoon of ginger powder mixed together in hot water for tea. Really powerful stuff. Okay. It has a small amount of caffeine in it. Not significant. It's like 80 milligrams of caffeine in the matcha, right? Something like this. But it's enough. And this can have very positive effects for your gallbladder to create a little bit of a contraction. Increase the amount of stomach acid and digestive enzymes in your gut so that when you have your first meal, it goes down a lot easier. Right? It's also really good for taking the edge off and reducing cortisol so your cortisol spike doesn't last as long. So the matcha contains high levels of L-theanine that you can leverage to act as a buffer against the cortisol. Right? So if you got elevated cortisol and anxiety, the matcha definitely helps with that. So you get that L-theanine, and it acts and it kind of replaces the cortisol. It gives your body the ability to relax and bring the cortisol down. This is really important too, because another thing that you have to be mindful of is how epinephrine affects the gallbladder. Right? Cortisol and epinephrine can cause your gallbladder issues to be way worse. So that matcha and that ginger combined really helps to take the edge off so you don't get like that crazy adrenal stimulus. All right. If you can tolerate it, it depends on where you're at, what your issues are. You can have a 4th meal. And that 4th meal contains a bit more of your dietary protein. So let's say you have that big salad, right? And you add about like anywhere from 15 to 20 or 25 grams of fat in that meal. And then again, the amount of fat that you put in the meal really it depends on other things. You know, if you're diabetic or something like this, it may be different. Because for diabetics, typically what I advise is you keep your dietary fats in between 10 and 15% of your macros. Okay. You can go to 20 to 25%, but it depends on how deep in you are. It depends on what your foods are. It depends on where you're getting the fats from. So if you're getting your dietary fats from omega-3 essential fatty acid sources, that's going to be a lot easier. But if it's like omega-6, if it's saturated fats, those are kind of like the worst ones you can get. But if you can handle more of the starchy foods, right, this is where you can add in, black beans, quinoa, sweet potato, butternut squash, broccoli, things like this. And the amount you eat would depend on your lean mass, right? So as far as calculating your calories and macros, this is important for portion control. So broadly speaking, macros would be carbohydrates would be anywhere from 50 to 65% of your macros. Your dietary fats would be anywhere from 10 to 15%, 20 at the most. If you're doing a high raw approach. If it's fully raw, it's different. Fully raw, you can have a bit more dietary fats, right? That's going to be more of a medicinal water-rich diet. It's going to be a very different thing. If it's high raw, you're implementing more cooked foods. That's when your dietary fats are going to be lower, carbohydrates are going to be higher. And then the protein is like anywhere from 10 to 16% of your macros. 16 is like the upper limit. You'd be more comfortable with 10 to 12%. If your diet is fully raw, it could be around like 9%. All right. If we break it down as far as grams per kilogram of lean mass, it's going to be around 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of lean mass. For dietary fats, this will be somewhere around a half a gram to 1 gram of fat per kilogram of lean mass. And then carbohydrates would be anywhere from 4 to 6 grams of carbs per kilogram of lean mass. If you follow those metrics, if you follow those ranges, that will automatically give you the caloric value of the day, right? So when we talk about eating calories, if you stick to those metrics, that would give you the amount of calories you're supposed to be eating. All right. So when I make diet plans for these issues, I do the math, I do the food choice and this type of thing, right? So I have a particular methodology that I use for these issues. All right. Speaking of that, you've got options, right? Because if you have issues, you need help with these issues. This is a big part of my methodology. A lot of what I said here in this video today, I mean, you can implement this on your own. You could, right? It's a bit of a learning curve because there's a lot of open-endedness because I can't tell you what you should be doing individually if I'm talking to a group. So I'm talking about how foods generally work and what generally causes the problem, what generally fixes it. However, you may have other issues. You may have other issues like neuropathy. You may have more edema. You may have really elevated blood pressure. You may not have really elevated blood pressure. You may not be insulin resistant. You may not have really high cholesterol. You may or may not, right? So these mixes of variables is going to make a difference in how your plan looks. So this is where you may want to book a call with me. So you can hit the link in the description of this video and you can book a call with me, or you can join the community where we do one-on-one group coaching calls for the community. All right. And I do these twice a week. I'm doing it tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, and then I'm doing it Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. For those of you who are tribe members, if you go into the board and you go under appointments and events, you'll see these already in your schedule. The one for Tuesday and the one for Thursday, they're already up. All right. Moving forward for the rest of the year, you will see these. You can just go under appointments and events and you will see your personal coaching calls. For those of you who have signed up for personal coaching, you'll see your calls and your appointments and events. You'll see the group coaching calls for the community. You'll see those in there. And those you can actually get on the mic. We go around the table, talk to every person in the call, answer your questions and that kind of thing. So it's more intimate. It's more one-on-one. And this kind of thing, it's not one-sided. It's interactive, right? So there's that in the community, and there's different levels. There's a free version, the public square. For the public square folks, that's where you can join in on the Tuesday call for those of you in the public square. So every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern, one of the perks of being a free member in the public square is you get those calls. Thursday, that's for the member exclusive. This is where we go over live diet planning. We go on a chronometer. We go over your personal diet plans, your successes, struggles, things like this. It is more individualized in the group. All right. So it's just a higher level of coaching in that one. We do live meal prep and all of this type of stuff. So those are your options. You can book a call with me. You can join the community at whatever level. There's the tribe community members. You get access to all of my guides, fasting guide, high raw vegan guide, tribe flex training series, mindset and self-development guides, and the group coaching calls. For the public square, it's free. You don't get all the guides, but you at least get to, like, you get entry into the community and to the Tuesday morning call. All right. I undercharge and over deliver. It's kind of my thing. And then the one-on-one calls, right? We got a full 60 minutes for you to get on a call with me and go one-on-one. All right. On the higher level, we've got the 12-week mentorship. We do weekly one-on-one calls. So if you sign up for the 12-week mentorship, you get all of the perks. You get the guides. You get access to the community on every level. And you get one-on-one coaching calls with me on a weekly basis. And you get daily coaching support, right? So you can actually message me if you have questions during the day. I respond to your questions, things like this, right? How's things going, etc. Right? So that's in the 12-week mentorship. And then 12-week personal coaching, that's where I make your diet and training plan for you, and you get access to the guides and everything in the community, as well as weekly one-on-one calls, right? So that's like the 12-week personal coaching is like you get the whole thing. All right, you get all of it. All right, so you've got options. So all of that is in the link in the description, and it'll have all the options listed that you can get in on. Whatever level of help you feel you need, it's covered. All right. Also, for community members like today, I have created 5 slots for a custom diet plan. So you can get a custom diet plan for 50% off. Okay. I just created the coupon code this morning. I'll be sending that out for an email. So if you're in the community, you'll get offers like that as well. I don't put those out broadly because there's only 5 slots at a time. So that's for community members. All right. So this is another reason to get into the community. So the custom diet plan is multiple diet plans within your diet plan, right? Basically options that you can rotate. All right. So you get a variety of options and things like that. Not too much options, because I don't want to overwhelm you, but it's like around 3 or 4. So that's what we got. Now I'm going to move over here to the chat. What's going on, Ella? Good to see you in here. We appreciate you and your dedication to helping more people attain wellness. Absolutely. Miss Juju, what's going on, Juju? Appreciate you. Coach is awesome. He will change your life. Coach, have a good day. Absolutely. Appreciate you for tuning in. Folks, like the stream. If you like the stream, right, go ahead and smash down on that like button. All right. Dorothy, what's going on? Thank you. I've been learning a lot from you. Appreciate that. Absolutely. Y'all know I come on here and I just hey, this is how it works. This is how you get issues. This is how you get solutions to your issues. That's what I'm about. Right? Y'all come here, y'all just get answers. That's what I do. I give way more than I. So I'm all about delivering that value to the community. I have diabetes, osteopenia. Will these foods help? Yes, absolutely. Raj, what's going on? Good evening. We got Raj tuning in from India. What's going on? Good to see you in here. Miss Virginia Stevens, what's going on, Virginia? Good to see you in here. Much love to you. You got Massey in here. Appreciate y'all. Do we have any other questions before we go ahead and log off and move on with our day? If we don't have any other questions, we're going to go ahead and sign out. Get to work, get busy with our day. And of course, everybody in the community, I'll see you tomorrow morning. So we're going to chop it up and go around the table. You know how we do. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get my first hydrating meal today. I'm getting started eating late. But absolutely much love to everybody. Appreciate y'all tuning in. And I will catch y'all on the next one.